Truly horrific conditions described there. Now, foreign ministers from Malaysia, Thailand and Indonesia will be meeting tomorrow to discuss the refugee crisis ahead of a conference next week. But a director in the Myanmar president's office says that his country won't attend next week's meeting if the word Rohingya is mentioned. The Myanmar government does not recognize the Rohingya as a legitimate ethnic group or citizens of the country. For more on their plight, I'm joined now by Alicia Delacour, vending in London. She is a researcher at the International State Crime Initiative. And Alicia, thank you for joining us here in CNN. Let's talk first on the origin of this crisis. Why is it that the Rohingya feel that they have no choice but to leave Myanmar?
Yes, of course. Well, the current humanitarian crisis that we're seeing on the Andaman Sea is, in fact, a direct result of the Myanmar state's historic and ongoing persecution of the Rohingya ethnic minority. Now, they have been faced with absolutely deplorable living conditions to the point where they feel as though they have no other option but to risk their lives on the high seas fleeing their country.
They are unable to work in Myanmar. They live in deplorable conditions. The Rohingya have been persecuted in Myanmar. And they have even told CNN that they have been literally burned out of their homes. So are we on the brink of a genocide inside Myanmar here?
That's right. Now, my colleagues and I would, in fact, argue that what we are seeing is a genocide, that we are in the midst of a genocide. Now, we define genocide as a long-term and ongoing process. We don't restrict it solely to the mass killing of a people. So our research has indicated that the Rohingya minority have been stigmatized as illegal Bengali immigrants who have no place in Myanmar society. They've been harassed through physical and verbal intimidation. Of course, we saw intense violence in Rakhine State in June and October 2012, which displaced over 100,000 Rohingya Muslims from their homes. And to date, no one has been held accountable for their involvement in this violence, which our evidence indicates was, in fact, organized. Now, the Rohingya are, of course, Yes, sorry?
Go ahead.
Yes, so the Rohingya have been isolated to internally displaced camps, of course, where they are shut off from mainstream Myanmar society, and they're being systematically weakened through overcrowding, the inability to access any meaningful livelihood. They are denied access to emergency medical care, which means that people are dying on a daily basis of treatable diseases such as diarrhea and basic malnutrition. And they are, of course, absolutely desperate to the point where we are seeing people flee in the tens of thousands just in order to seek some form of
describing,
living conditions.
Just truly horrifying living conditions, a horrifying existence for the Rohingya, which is in line with CNN's own reporting in Sitwe and that part of Myanmar. That's why we have this refugee crisis happening now. And at this moment, Alicia, we know that thousands of migrants remain stranded at sea. And we have a situation where these governments in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Thailand and Indonesia refuse to take them in. So what's the solution here? What can the international community do to save lives?
Of course, the international community needs to put increased pressure on the governments of Malaysia, Thailand and Indonesia to assist these people who are facing a severe humanitarian crisis. However, we must not limit our focus to this current crisis, which indeed is absolutely appalling. We must understand that the crisis is a manifestation of ongoing policies of persecution which the Myanmar government has engaged in now for decades. And until these root causes are addressed, we will continue to see people fleeing their home in droves, and we will continue to see more of the same.
Which brings us back to Myanmar. And Myanmar does not recognize the Rohingya. The government is refusing to attend a summit, even if the word Rohingya is mentioned. Given such a hardline stance, what can be done to engage the government of Myanmar on this issue?
Well, I think now in terms of the opening up and the continued and increased engagement by international governments with the Myanmar state, more force needs to be placed, and the government needs to be made aware that this continued intolerance and inability to foster respectful communities will not be tolerated. It is utterly unacceptable, and we need to make it very clear to the Myanmar state that consequences will follow if it does not address the root causes of these tensions.